Welcome to the Winning Family Podcast with Rodney and Michelle Gage. This is an incredible podcast designed to help you build a winning family. I'm your host, Dr. Linda Travelute, and I'm sitting here with Rodney and Michelle Gage, the incredible marriage mentors. If you don't know them, oh my goodness, you're missing out. Here's your introduction. Hi, guys.
Hey, Linda. Thank you so much for joining us today.
You just never know what's going to come out of my mouth, right? You're just sitting there going, where's she going?
I'm on the edge of my seat.
Where's she going?
That's such a great voice. I love it.
Well, this is going to be a super fun topic because we always try to make it fun, right? But why couples stop growing in their marriage. And it's going to be juicy. I know, because I just heard you share a summary of what you're going to share. And this is valuable. But let me just mention, if you are joining us for the first time and you do not know that I'm going to give you a key to a treasure at the end of this episode where you can get a copy of Rodney's new book, The Double Win. And it's, did I say free? It's free?
Yes.
It's free.
That's right.
And then you also have an opportunity to join their mentoring club for 30 days. And after you listen to them speak, you'll know why you need to be in that mentoring club. So let's dive into the topic, why couples stop growing in their marriage.
Let's dive in. Let's dive in. It's interesting when we talk about that. I think you think of the different seasons of marriage and different seasons that you go through if you're a parent, in your marriage. So what would you say would be the reason that you would stop growing, like growing in your love, growing in your leadership, growing in your wisdom, all of those things in your marriage?
Well, I think in anything, it's a lack of intentionality.
Right. So,
it's, and we can have the best of intentions, but life happens. And, and we, I know you mentioned just a second ago the book called The Double Win, which is a book designed to help people win at home, at work, at that whole work-life balance challenge that so many people face. But really the foundational book that Michelle and I really put our heart and soul into is a book called Family Shift. And in that, we talk about something referred to as the drift.
Yeah.
So what happens is the drift is kind of like an acronym that can be some of the reasons why a lot of couples stop growing or families get distracted, stop becoming intentional. And the D stands for distractions. There are distractions, as we all know. I mean, they're coming at us constantly. There's also disappointments.
Yeah.
And so you have, whether it's disappointments from stuff going on, whether it's distractions from just so many things coming at us, those obviously take our attention away from each other and on all of that other stuff. And then you have the R, which stands for regret. So a lot of times we start regretting the place we're in, and we regret, decisions that have been made. We're carrying all of this, maybe guilt, or we're carrying, frustration, all of these emotions, that causes regret. And then sometimes we fall into that place of isolation. That's the I, where we're kind of pulling back. We're kind of distancing ourselves from our spouse, or we're distancing, ourselves from other friends, other people, other family. And so we feel like now we're kind of, coasting through and kind of going it alone. And then, the F is the frustrations that go with that. Things aren't going as we'd hoped. Things aren't going as good as they could or should. And then that leads to the T, which is a lot of stress and tension. It's the tension that just kind of like fills the atmosphere. And so all of a sudden that happens extremely subtle.
Yeah. And it's interesting, though, what I said just a moment ago about the different seasons, that could happen in the first 6 months.
Yeah.
I'm sitting there thinking, I know people that happened in a year.
Yeah.
And they stopped growing fast, It can happen when the kids are young, when you're pursuing your career. It can happen when they're teenagers and they're driving you crazy. It can happen when you're an empty nester. It's at any season in your marriage that this can happen.
Right.
So
be
to be prepared.
Guard. Be alert. Be ready.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's we tell an illustration about going snorkeling. And we went to Cancun, Mexico. And so long story short, here we are, all of our family. We're
Having
all
the
together.
best time.
Yeah, beautiful waters, so we're getting this little we went through this like little jungle cruise type thing that it kind of takes you out into the open waters. So we're getting ready to put on all of our gear, and so the instructor gives us this little quick tutorial, and he told us about something called the check-in or check-out rule. And so basically what that means is that about every 10 to 15 minutes, you need to check in. Basically, pull your head up out of water to get reoriented so you know where you are, because otherwise you're going to get so distracted and caught up with what's below the surface, all the species and fish and all the stuff.
Making faces at each other.
Yeah. Before you
Under the
know
water.
it, what happens is you can get caught up in just that current that suddenly is taking you further and further out. And before you realize it, when you should have checked in, now you're totally checked out.
Wow.
And so that's something I think can happen, obviously, in our homes, in our marriages, with our children. And that's why we have to be intentional so we don't drift and we don't allow things that are going to sabotage our growth and overall just our health and well-being as a family, in especially in the marriage relationship. So it's the old saying, healthy things grow. So if we're not growing, it might be because we're not being intentional and maybe have not prioritized putting ourselves in a place to grow in our lives. And whether that's, relationally in our marriage, growing in our togetherness, as a couple, or togetherness as a family, or just growing in other areas, especially in our spiritual life, where we're able to really keep the main thing when it comes to spiritually allowing God, specifically Christ, to be at the center of everything that we're doing. So I'm a firm believer that if we are growing and we are maturing in our relationship with the Lord, the closer we draw to Him, we get closer to Him. Naturally, we're all going to be drawing closer to each other as long as we're on that same pursuit, as we're all rowing in the same direction. So
I love the quote. I may not get it exactly right, but by John Maxwell, where he talks about the only guarantee that tomorrow will be better is that you're growing today. So we can make the choice to grow in our marriages, that they will be better tomorrow.
Yeah.
If we make these choices.
How long have you and Ted been married?
I'm not good with numbers. How long have you been married?
30-something.
30-something. 32? Have you been married
32?
32? Because if you've been married 32, I've been married 32 because I know we're the same. So
this
that's
year
how
is
I remember.
32, right?
Okay.
Yeah, June 32.
Okay. I don't even know how old I am, so don't ask. I know what year I was born. That's what, anyway, 32 years.
Got married at 13. But I'm just kidding. I think where I was asking you is, what have you and Ted done through the years to grow?
Yeah, that's a great question. When we were newly engaged, of course, we went to premarital counseling, which I highly recommend.
Yes.
Because I think, I was a pastor for over 27 years and did a lot of marriage ceremonies, performed a lot of weddings, and saw that people spend more time preparing for their driver's exam to get their driver's license than they do to get their marriage license. And so premarital counseling is such a valuable investment of your time and money. So when we went to premarital counseling, we decided that we would develop a growth plan for our marriage.
Awesome.
And so we committed to going to marriage conferences, marriage retreats, reading books together.
Awesome.
But one of the things I think that was a game changer, and I think we've talked about it in past episodes, is the commitment we made, especially when our kids were younger, that at the end of every day when we got home from work or stopped working, we would check in with one another. Yeah. And that was before we would attend to the kids, before we would do anything else, cook dinner, whatever. We would just take 15 minutes to check in, and the kids knew that they were not allowed to bother us at that during that time. That was mom and dad's time. And not only did that help us figure out where we were at, it helped us be involved in one another's day, but it also taught our kids that the first priority, the first relationship in the home was mom and dad. Yeah. That was priority. And then their relationship was built upon ours. And they began to have an understanding that that is what they need in their marriage. And so my son and my daughter kind of do that. Of course, they work together. Maybe that's my son and my daughter-in-law do that. And of course, they don't have kids yet, but it shows them the importance of it. But yeah, we developed a growth plan. And then, we have little things I think that we do that we're very intentional about having a date night every week.
Great.
I think for the last 32 years, I don't know that there's only been a few times that we didn't pull that off.
Wow.
And one of them was when I was having a baby and I was in labor. So
my goodness.
I don't know if that counts,
Amazing.
Right? But yeah, date nights are important. Right, right. So a growth plan, I think, for me and Ted, for Ted and I, that's our key to growing. Make it intentional.
That's excellent. That's amazing.
Yeah, I think it's just a matter of, I heard someone once say, the single most important thing a couple can do to grow in their marriage is, rather than trying to fix their problems, it is to focus on their togetherness. And so when you are working towards your togetherness, that is more, you're being proactive, whereas you're trying to fix the problems or fix each other, you're reactive. You're trying to change something that you can't necessarily change. You can't change your spouse. You can't change other people. All we can do is change ourselves.
Yeah.
It starts with us. And, when you're working on your togetherness, it brings you together so that you can talk. You can enter into each other's world. You can openly discuss things that need to be talked about so that you can improve. You can grow. I mean, there are times when Michelle calls me out, when I need to be called out about something. And there are things that I can say to her, but the purpose of us doing that is not to point our finger or to hurt each other, but it's to help us become more aware that there are things that are interfering. There are things that are causing us not to be at our best with one another. Yeah. And so, we have to just accept that, own that, surrender to that, and say, how can I get better? How can I improve in this area? And, we've often encouraged couples, it's the old scale of 1 to 10, exercise. And so it's that, if you were to just stop where you are, whether you've been married a year, whether you've been married for 20 years, or whether you're thinking about, obviously if you're thinking about marriage, this may not apply. Maybe you need to talk to your boyfriend or girlfriend or fiance or whoever, your special, companion, whoever you will call them. But the point is that ask yourself the question on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being, the ultimate, 1 not being so good. How would you currently rate your relationship with each other? And let's just say, if you're given an open, honest, transparent, answer, 1 says, well, I would say we're about a 6. Okay. Well, let me ask you this. If I'm a 6, what can I do over the next 30 days or next 60 days, 90 days to go from a 6 to an 8? What do you need to hear from me? What do I need to do differently? How can I improve or grow in these areas? And then let that other person speak into that. Right. And then if we're willing to listen rather than argue or, well, that's your opinion or whatever, it's working on your togetherness. And that is going to, I think, help us in the area of growth, because again, healthy things grow. Yes. So, and you got to make sure that the soil in your relationship is fertile, so that all of those things can take root, so it can grow.
And don't you think the key to that is just being open to hearing their answer? Because if you don't give a flip what they're going to say, well, game over. Game over. You got to be able to ask that question with a sincere desire to hear and then maybe do something.
Yeah.
And I think that's where a lot of people get stuck. They don't really want to hear the answer. They're not open to it. They're not maybe humble enough to ask those questions.
Yeah.
Right?
Right. Yeah. That's really
good advice.
That's
Good
really
advice.
I'll never forget years ago, one of my mentors and just somebody that really influenced Michelle and I in our early days, and a guy by the name of Gary Smalley, who's, now with the Lord, but I know he has a couple of sons that have carried on his ministry. And I'll never forget, there was a teaching he did one time, and he used basically it's like this beautiful plant. It was, green. It was, had some beautiful flowers on it. And so he put it out on display, and he was talking about this plant that was very, the soil was lush, it was beautiful, vibrant. And then after he kind of explained all of that, then he brought the exact same plant, but this one was basically dying on the vine. I mean, it was brown, the leaves had fallen off, the blooms had, basically, had stopped. And basically what he was saying, the difference between one and the other is the fact that one, in order for the one that's healthy, in order for it to get healthy, and the reason for its health was because it got the proper ingredients, the nutrients, which was the soil, which was the sunlight, the air, and, the water, that made the soil fertile. And so he was using that as a metaphor to help you understand that as a couple, you have, what is often referred to as the soil of romance. It is the air of affection. It is I think he referred to as the sunlight of attention, and I can't remember what the fourth one was, but man, it was good.
To go back.
Yeah, man. Yes, that was it. It was, but anyway, was that already say affection? I think it was.
Yeah.
But anyway, the point is that he was emphasizing that these ingredients are the very things that we have to do in order for something to be healthy, for it to be set up for growth, so it can reach its potential. So anyway, that just popped into my head, in the fact that I think when it comes to helping couples and helping families grow, we just got to do the things. That's where the intentionality comes in. Just doing the things that's going to help us flourish and thrive. Because if we don't do that, that's when we're going to drift. And we'll eventually check out.
Right.
So we have to do, we call it weekly check-ins. We encourage families to do weekly check-ins, and that's where you have an opportunity just to work on your togetherness, whether it's a husband and wife, or whether it's you and the kids, as a family. But you get together and you just enter into each other's world.
Absolutely.
And talk through things that need to be talked through, and share highs for the week, or lows, things you're struggling with. And it's just that opportunity, once again, for us to check back in and really grow in our relationships and understanding, and really it helps us reach our potential.
It does. Yeah. I think check-ins can happen at any time too. Like just for example, Ted and I last night, we got in from being at a meeting and crawled into bed, and he looks at me before he turns over to go to sleep. He goes, "Anything you need to talk to me about?" I'm like, "No, I'm good. I'm good." It's just checking in. It's just saying, "Hey, are we good? Anything, I don't know if he picked up anything in my body language, or maybe he thought I was, and it didn't even have to have anything to do with he thought I was upset. It may not have been anything like that. He's just checking in. Hey, you good? How you doing? Anything we need to talk about? Nope. Okay, let's go to sleep."
That's awesome.
Right?
That's
Check in
awesome.
as needed.
Yeah.
Check in as needed.
Yeah. You have to be selfless. I think the more self-focused we are, the harder it is to see beyond ourselves,
That's right.
beyond our frustration, beyond our difficulties, our pain, things that we're going through, to look beyond ourselves to our spouse and see them, and just as we look to help our children and to serve our children, even more so is the importance that we do that with our spouse, and we are teaching our children by example. So I think it's really important how we start our marriage, and maybe you're beyond that point right now as a listener. You didn't get a chance to start maybe on the right foot, but you can start wherever you're at. And I love, you mentioned, Rodney, just I believe at the beginning, just to grow closer. I would, you many times when you're doing premarital counseling, or when you're doing counseling with couples, you'll talk about the triangle, and this one spouse is on one bottom corner, one spouse is on the other bottom corner, and God is at the top. And when you are each together or separately drawing closer to God, when you make that your top priority to be close to God, and as much what would Jesus do type of person, the closer you come to that, the more intimate you become with God and your relationship with him, the closer you're going to come to each other as you go up that triangle towards God individually. And when I was mentored as a teenager, one of my mentors talked to me about my life work and my life calling. And he talked to me about the type of person I should date should be the type of person that has a similar life calling. And that was one of the greatest pieces of advice that I was ever given, because I was able to set up my life, the rest of my life, on a foundation of I was going to be pursuing God, and I was going to look for somebody that was in the same path as I was going. And because of that, when Rodney talks about that togetherness, I made choices. There were other people along the way before God brought Rodney into my life. And I made a choice to say, no, that's not, even though it's a great person, could be a good choice. God had a specific, I believe, person for me, and I was choosing that pathway. And I say this to say, you may already be married and maybe you didn't make that choice, but we have the opportunity to teach our children. We can teach our children that look for somebody that loves God, and you pursue God, and you're going to have this bond between you that is unexplainable, because it's a spiritual bond. And it's such a gift to have that. And we do have to work at our togetherness, because we're people that are self-focused. Our what we call our sin nature is self-focused. And our spirit man is love and joy and peace and patience and kindness and goodness. But when we lean into what our natural man, we are very self-focused, and we have to get our focus off of ourselves and focus on the other person. But I just want to encourage you in that, because I think it's all a part of having the winning family, is teaching our children, teaching by example, showing them what it takes to have that togetherness in their life.
Well, to wrap this up, I think the greatest single thing that as parents, as those who are in a marriage relationship, if you're married and you are a parent, the greatest single thing you can do as a parent is to love your spouse.
That's right.
And
100%.
The stronger and the healthier and more secure that marriage relationship is, that is going to spill over to raising up children who are healthy emotionally, spiritually, where they are secure, because they know, they've seen it, they've heard it, they've watched it with their eyes. A mom and a dad who actually lives what they say they believe. And that is everything. And, just to say this in conclusion, that for those who maybe, for whatever reason, circumstances, maybe things didn't go as you'd hoped. Maybe a marriage ends. And we actually did a podcast on that not too long ago. But, or maybe you're living with the regrets. You feel for whatever reason that you failed, as a spouse, maybe just even as a parent, and I really, really believe that we serve a God who's a God of second chances, and his mercies are fresh each and every day. And we don't want to focus and dwell on the past or what could have been, but more importantly, focus on what can be and what will be with God's help. And so we can start growing again.
Second
we can
chance.
We can start experiencing what we desire in our heart to experience. But, we have to make whatever changes that we need to make so that we can start positioning ourselves in a place where we're growing and developing, becoming healthy and whole in all aspects, so that we can be the best. We can give the best version of ourselves, one, into the Lord, but also to our spouse and to our children, or to that future mate. Maybe you're a single parent, and you're thinking, well, I certainly don't want to repeat what I've experienced in the past. Well, this is an opportunity to push reset and to enter into another relationship, a new relationship, where you are completely healed and whole, and we've learned from our past, and we're going to move forward. We're not going to look to the past. We're going to look forward to the future and reach our true God-given potential for who He has made us to be. And so last thing we want to do is beat ourselves up, for mistakes that we've made and live with regrets. That's the enemy.
Right. And if your marriage is not where you want it to be, and you yourself are doing everything you can to grow, I just want to encourage you too, and I know you all would as well, that prayer, God is the one that draws us to Himself, and just pray for your spouse and represent Jesus, and do your best and give the rest to God. That's all you can do.
Only God can change someone's heart.
Right. Yeah. Right. And we're praying for you too.
Yeah.
Well,
incredible.
Hopefully that helps.
Oh, that was good stuff. Good stuff. Thank you for sharing, guys. This has been an incredible episode of the Winning Family Podcast, and we want to encourage you to go to thewinningfamily.com. Did I say it right? Thewinningfamily.com, and get your free copy of one of two books, The Family Shift or The Double Win, and then sign up for the 30-day free. I know I botched that, didn't I? No. 30 free days of mentoring with Rodney and Michelle Gage, because they dive even deeper into these kinds of topics.
It's actually a mentoring club. So it's not 30 days of mentoring, but it is, you have access to our portal with all kinds of things in there. It probably could take you 30 days to get through all of that, but we do have a monthly mentoring call for parents and couples. So yes, you can find out all the information at thewinningfamily.com.
Thewinningfamily.com. Yeah. Great. And then also subscribe to the podcast, right?
Yes.
Get this downloaded to your phone or wherever you get your podcasts, so that it just comes in automatically when a new episode is released. And we'd love for you to share it, rate it, review it. And then I'll tell you something, a little secret here. Rodney and Michelle love direct messages. You guys love DMs. Hit them up with your questions and comments, and they will interact with you. They will. They are very good at that. So we want to encourage you to do that. So until next time, thank you guys for sharing. It's been a fun episode, and we will see you next time. The Winning Family.
Bye, guys.